So this is part B of the Khoodeelaar campaign, KhoodeelaarTV Channel, being broadcast from London only on the internet, not on terrestrial, not on satellite, not on cable platforms. And we call this financial crimes because it doesn't talk about society, it doesn't talk about people, it doesn't talk about people that are experiencing financial hardships. Now, this is Mary Beard, and we're going to take a look at the piece that she said. She says in the tweet earlier that her piece can be accessed. Whether she meant this one or another one is not very clear, but we shall have a look. And this one is Mary Beard is an academic based at the University of Cambridge in England, not Cambridge in Massachusetts in the USA. And there is a piece by Lawrence Fletcher. The heading is "Hedge Funds Are Losing Their Secret Sauce." And the whole thing, Financial Times, is full of secret codes for criminals. And even when they're talking about pets, they're talking about money. And it says pet mania brings out animal instincts in eager investors. They can't get away from investment. So we should see where the Financial Times is running its editorial. Which page? And it says digital powers tighten grip on modern world. The entirety of the Financial Times, the reason why we call it financial crimes, is complete code secrecy, code for criminals at the expense of society. And there is a promotional image of Johnson, and the caption underneath is the impression that Britain under Boris Johnson is run by a gilded chamocracy could prove toxic at the next election. and it has got a big read on technology headed Apple takes on the internet. And there is a picture of the Apple man. With its new operating system update, the tech giant clamped down on how apps collect data from users in order to create personalized ads. In doing so, it is taking on developers as well as Facebook and Google. And there is a piece about the promotion by the United Nations for Aung San Suu Kyi. And they said in a heading that Joe Biden is following Trump's script about China. And they've got on page 2 a piece that Sadiq Khan in pole position for second term as London mayor. And they've got a picture of Boris Johnson's fiancée smiling as she stands next to the crook Eddie Lister. And this is a picture, this caption by the Financial Crimes says, steady presence. Eddie Lister joins Kerry Simmons, Boris Johnson's partner, as they wait for him to arrive in Downing Street as Prime Minister for the first time in July 2019. So really, the financial crimes is financial crimes because it's not talking about the number of people without homes, number of people without jobs. Most certainly not number of people who are obstructed by discrimination, racism, and bias and prejudice. Now, today's papers in London price: Daily Telegraph £3, the I newspaper £1.20, Daily Star 90 pence, Daily Mail £1 10 pence, The Sun Saturday 85 pence, The Times £2.50, The Guardian Saturday £3.20, and the Financial Times £4 in London price. So we had to get this. Now this one is the Financial Crimes Criminal Supplement, how to spend it, completely in denial of the existence of society. It's a cabal of criminals who have the money to spend it. And for 5-6 weeks, this comes with the Saturday edition of Financial Times, of course. But for the 5 or 6 weeks, we haven't got this one included in the paper on Saturdays, nor the Financial Times magazine. These are all for people with loads and loads of money. And this is the reason why we call it the Financial Crimes. So we'll see where they put Mary Beard. And there is a piece in the magazine on page 14. Has Labour's red wall crumbled for good? As we said earlier, the Labour Party has been murdered by Keir Starmer, and this is another kind of admission by the Fleet Street, let's say. Labour lost 60 seats in 2019. Next week, former stronghold Hartlepool might fall too. Jim Pickard and Sebastian Payne report on how the party's support collapsed and where this leaves leader Keir Starmer. Well, it doesn't lead him anywhere. He's lost. He's been murdering the Labour Party, so it doesn't leave him anywhere. He is nowhere because he's murdered the Labour Party. And we shall see if we can find Mary Beard in this one. There's a teapot that costs 3,500 pounds. That's how remote these financial criminals are from society, from reality. So we'll have to look again to spot where Mary Beard has been published. Probably this one, Life and Arts. This is probably the one that contains Mary Beard. And they've got the piece, long last, they've got a piece heading, Unmaking of India. That is the picture of the fascist murderer, Narendra Modi, who has been responsible for murdering the Indians. Now, this is where the Financial Times Weekend has got Mary Beard, and we shall be looking at Mary Beard in full in due course, and we shall be commenting on that, because I think we have launched a kind of campaign for Mary Beard to be gonged and given a gong, although we in principle oppose the gong. And so they got 2 copies of the How to Spend It. That is a mistake. Somebody else is not going to get theirs. And the parental abuse of Britney Spears is being reported again because of the court case. Her father is age 68. And he has a kind of abused his child Britney Spears for her entire life. So we shall be looking again in detail at the parental abuse of children. And we shall say, on the evidence, that parents in every culture abuse children. Now, the fact that that happens does not make it an excuse for any of the cultures to say that, look, we are not the only one abusing. And in the context of our campaigning platform, we reassert and repeat and reiterate. And this is the month of Ramadan, that the Muslims should be held to account, put it very kindly, because Muslim parents abuse their children as widely, as grotesquely, as dangerously, as lethally as abuse happens in other cultures and other communities, other faith groups, which is no excuse. It is an offense. It is a crime of the highest magnitude. And the Marduk scum is lying. Why is it lying? Let's look at the claim here. Well, it says, jabs rollout gives 70% adults COVID immunity. Now let's slowly dissect this lie. The vaccine is still being rolled out. So there hasn't been enough empirical, clinical evidence as to its effectiveness to say that it gives 70% immunity is absolutely unfounded. It's not based on the evidence. And this is the problem. This is the problem because they're doing this, Fleet Street, as part of the lying propaganda to shore up Boris Johnson. When it is all revealed, like somebody wrote last year, on 30th of April, actually, 2020, that Boris Johnson was murdering people with his delay in bringing on the lockdown. So when they promote this vaccine rollout as Boris Johnson's biggest achievement, they do that dishonestly in the full knowledge that there is no evidence to make the claims they're making. But nonetheless, they are making the claims because they're making it at the moment to trap people into, lull people into believing that it is working. It is not working, not to the extent that they are claiming. This raises the question as to why numbers of infections are reported as having gone down. Well, that is another question. Have they gone down in Britain? We're talking about the UK. What remains of the UK after the riots in Northern Ireland and the still active threat by the SNP for an independent Scotland. But Rebecca Brooke, who is the agent for Rupert Murdoch, who controls the scum, she's brazen in defending Boris Johnson. and the scum is lying. This is a double-edged lie. Labour blames Boris Johnson for every failure while denying him credit for any success. Now, that is an absolute lie, because Starmer has repeatedly said that he decided not to oppose Boris Johnson because, as he claimed, national interest. So this scum is lying today. And this thing called Robert Rinder. I mean, if there is a creep promoting himself on television, it is Robert Rinder. Complete, absolute dishonest crook. If Grinder watches this and disagrees with the description of him as a crook, let him prove that he's not a crook. Everything he does and says is crafted as a sucker. And this racist, Ulrika Shameson, has been given a platform by the scum, and saying she's smart, she's sassy, she's sincere. New columnist Ulrika is completely corrupt. And they're even running a picture of Ulrika with Gordon the racist Brown. That was when Gordon Brown was in government, so-called. And the magazine is complete Gullible's Guide to Being More Gullible and Stupid. What is this? And these newspapers are not only is the financial crimes criminally in denial of the existence of society, but the rest of Fleet Street is. So this is the world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. World exclusive diagnosis, original world exclusive diagnosis of Fleet Street. And they're overdoing the celebration that the virus is over. And they're writing headlines or headings at the slightest excuse. Headings that suggest that everything is open, the pubs are open, the parks are open, and the shops are open, and all these things are open. Exactly what Narendra Modi did in India before the more dangerous, lethal SARS appeared. And the Times is saying the same thing, that the parliamentary seats that the Labour Party gave away in December 2019 to Boris Johnson, they are going to be lost forever. And a very small item on page 4 of the Times at the bottom, which says neo-Nazi police constable is jailed. A policeman has been jailed for 4 years and 4 months for being part of a banned neo-Nazi group. PC Benjamin Hannam, 22, was found guilty of belonging to National Action after it was outlawed in 2016, following a trial at the Old Bailey. He had been a probationary officer with the Metropolitan Police for 2 years. He attended training camps, went on graffiti sprees, and recruited for the group. Judge Anthony Leonard, QC, told him, "I consider what you did to be very serious, and you have harmed public trust in the police." On the opposite page, there is a longer piece about Sadiq Khan supporting the London Metropolitan Police Chief after split over Everard Vigil. Now, these two we shall discuss more later. But these two typify the corruption at the heart of the elected mayor system, and also in the coverage or cover up by Fleet Street. Why is the Times running this as the smallest item on an inside page? A neo-Nazi policeman. I mean, it beggars belief that they are not running this as the main item on the front page or front pages. And there are 2 pages on the Indian catastrophe where a woman is quoted as saying, "We watched my husband die through the window." No, it's not India. It doesn't say India at the top, but I assumed it was India because of the India being the dominant item about the COVID currently. So it is talking about Scottish care home and the fact that they were prevented. The woman whose husband died in the care home was prevented from being with him inside, so they saw the window. And I have actually put together the other reports from India where people have been reportedly jumping from the top of the buildings and dying, and various accounts of deaths across Delhi, mainly Delhi, but across the rest of the country. And here is the very deadly racist Amber Rudd exposed. She wants to cover up. Literally, she wants to delete records of hate incidents. So what is happening is, on the one hand, Starmer is murdering the Labour Party. And even before the Labour Party was murdered in the way that Starmer has been doing it, the Labour Party was not. The Labour Party as a party in Parliament or in the country, in the constituencies, the Labour Party was not opposing racism. So with Amber Rudd joining the racists and the hate criminals, it is a confirmation of the involvement of the likes of the Conservative Party and the likes of Amber Rudd in the fascist resurgence, anti-Muslim, anti-Asian, anti-African resurgence of racist hatred in the UK. Well, Peter Brooks's cartoon is about Johnson's telephone mobile for 15 years, but that is oversimplifying, because Johnson must have had many, many more mobile phones. But for a cartoon, that kind of simplistic assumption is essential. Otherwise, the cartoon becomes too complicated and loses the focus. And even Times has a kind of editorial, the first editorial of the three, headed Starmer Strife. And we have been calling Starmer out and accusing him for as long as he has been in that post, that he has been a betrayal, he has been letting down, and he has been bad news. But currently we have updated our description of the role, our analysis of the role of Keir Starmer as the person who has been politically murdering the Labour Party. And everyone else is now catching up. Remember, we said it, and they haven't yet said what we have been saying, but they're getting there, probably, hopefully. Starmer Strife. Labour is falling even further behind in the red wall constituencies. The party needs a clearer identity while avoiding a lurch to the left. So you see, it's the Times, it's the news organ owned by Rupert Murdoch. So he's a conservative, and he's a right-winger, and he's a racist. And Starmer is failing every way. Even the right-wingers, blame him. The Sun has got an editorial this come against Starmer, and so has the Times. And as I said, Private Lie has got a piece typically kind of mocking Starmer and effectively saying that Starmer is irrelevant politically. So we shall be talking more about Starmer's failures in later parts. And I've got on the weekend section of the supplement of the Times, pack your wetsuit, 40 best beaches in the UK. And what have they got? It's a pornographic shot. The beaches are about young white women wearing hardly any clothes. And there is a woman called Susie Godson who is described as a sex counsel, that is advisor. And she is saying, why do men bore me so much? Well, there is an answer, but that is unspeakable, isn't it? The Guardian is overhyping the BBC series about the police, Line of Duty. I haven't watched this, and there is no time to watch this, but even if I had time and I watched it, I would not be agreeing with the hype that the Guardian has joined. Because being on the BBC and being about the police, it is not likely to admit the racism that is operated through the police in this country. And the Guardian is overdoing the fact that Glastonbury is on with an exclamation mark. And Patrick Winter has got a piece about India. And the heading is India Project or India Project Tracking Virus Variants falls victim to cuts in UK's overseas aid budget. It's typical Guardian. It's not like the Financial Times, which has got a correct heading. The unmaking of India with a correct picture of Narendra Modi. The Guardian is in denial about Narendra Modi's failures. And they've got a piece about Kerry Simmons, and they're saying that her influence at number 10 Downing Street goes further than the wallpaper. And they've got an item written by three of their writers, Luke Harding, Andrew Sparrow, and Jessica Elgott. And it says, penchant for fabrication. Prime Minister's career built on a casual relationship with the truth. Now, Luke Harding is a racist criminal liar that met me when he came to hear my update on the campaign that I was running against the UK Department for Health in 1994. Shortly after I started the campaign for justice for this child, Nasima Begum. And Luke Harding was one of the liars that came and took my time and stole the information and abused my work, went away and completely falsified the account that the facts warranted and I had given him. The Sikh Harding is one of the guardian liars that I have actually fingered. Now this is the Saturday edition of the I newspaper is actually called Saturday and Sunday edition. Now, why are they saying that there will be financial economic boom of a kind that has not happened for 70 years? What are they capitalizing on? And there is a piece, as I said at the beginning, it's not on the front pages, but I said that the vaccine achievement is absolutely overrated and completely false and without foundation. Because here, what they're saying about India applies to the UK as well, because for a start, the vaccine shortage in India, which is linked to the surge, is not the only reason. There are other fundamental, deep-seated reasons. And the I newspaper has got on page 14 the item about neo-Nazi metropolitan policeman having been jailed for 4 years. He may not serve all 4 years. And there is the outcry. A neo-Nazi is being reported as if it's a known. But if it was so-called terrorist, whatever the extent of the terror threat, it would be on the front page, or it would be very, very differently displayed. And the Boris Graph has got a piece about Hilary Mantel. This is Hilary Mantel in the magazine, the writer Hilary Mantel. And that cover statement is repeated on the front page of the paper. I haven't had the ordinary markers of a woman's life. Well, imagine if Hilary Mantel was an Asian woman or an African woman. Would she be tolerated? The answer is emphatically not. And if she were a Muslim, God forgive. And there is a piece in the Boris propaganda outlet, the Daily Boris Graph, which is running this Gordon Rayner as the associate editor with the heading, Mr. Johnson's loyalty to Cummings was unshakable. So why did it all turn sour? And this is a lying piece because it doesn't accuse Johnson of being a liar, which is what he is and has been, and which is why Johnson was loyal to Dominic Cummings in the unshakable way that he was. Because the two of them, Cummings and Johnson, were among a very small group of Brexiteering liars who lied to voters with intent. That's the reason, not because Johnson, lacked cabinet experience. And the Star's editorial underplays Boris Johnson's dishonesty, says that his life is a circus. It's not a circus at all, it's an intended parade of various faces and pretensions by a very deeply opportunistic, dishonest careerist. And the fact that the papers are saying these light things about him show that he's succeeding. And they're saying that they're going to mark their number, 127,000 people who died of COVID, with a memorial at St. Paul's Cathedral. Yeah, there's a rare kind of moral piece here. That people are packing pubs in their thousands and they're ignoring funerals. And this is the Daily Mail boasting of itself 125 years. Now, the Mail is boasting that it has reached the top of Fleet Street, that is in terms of circulation, and it is bragging that readers are responsible for this. But it is not talking about the campaigns for justice. In fact, the Daily Mail symbolizes injustice under covers of being concerned about the ordinary readers and ordinary people in this country. It is opportunistic, corrupt, and deeply racist to the point that its racism borders on almost incitement to crimes every single time. And that is true even after considering the role it played as a newspaper in calling the murderers of Stephen Lawrence murderers. That was an exception because the Daily Mail has got the largest number of items, racist items, and in denial items about racism. And the coverage about the murderers of Stephen Lawrence itself has been racist because the main institutional and individual evidence and empirical evidence of racism day to day in every agency, every institution, every aspect, every part of society in Britain has been either left out or ignored or falsely depicted as being not racist when it has been racist, and it is racist. And the 125 years is longer than 75 years since, 74 calendar years since August 1947, when the British, quote, Raj, quote, ended in the subcontinent. There is nothing in the Daily Mail's history of the last, or behavior or conduct or content of the last 74 calendar years that has actually covered the crimes committed by the very fact of the empire. And the connection between those crimes and the poverty and disorganization and lack of structural kind of foundation for democracy, democratic accountability, and the economic kind of improvement for the lives of people in the subcontinent, in all the countries. The main countries are, of course, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. But the neighboring countries of Sri Lanka and Nepal and the other smaller countries on the periphery are equally affected, adversely affected, and damaged by empire. And the racist legacy that the Raj left persists to this day. And this has impacted on the contaminated views taken by the various occupants in positions of power in the countries concerned, India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan. These are hampering ordinary people, ordinary lives, and preventing the holding to account the ones that are making the decision. And nowhere is this more damaging because the numbers affected than it is in India. And the Daily Mail doesn't. The Daily Mail or the Mail on Sunday really doesn't report the truth about India. except in very oblique terms that are unrepresentative of the truth, and neglect the evidence and the rights of the hundreds of millions of people that are being denied and deprived and murdered. Now the massacre by the COVID-19 that Narendra Modi has caused is going to make things even harder for these people. So we talked about the mayoral election in London, because Sadiq Khan is being kind of mentioned in more than one item by more than one paper. And one is reporting that he has been backing the commissioner of the Metropolitan Police, Cressida Dick, over the way that the Metropolitan Police attacked the peaceful mourners for Sarah Everard. Now, this is Sadiq Khan being typical, because he is a mental stooge, a racist stooge, and a stooge for the police, regardless of whether it's the racism, because the Metropolitan Police is widely considered as a police force that is full of racists. And this news item about the neo-Nazi being jailed for 4 years yesterday shows that the police has got not just one neo-Nazi, but any number of Nazis, any number of racists in its ranks, and there is no accountability for the police, which the police need. The police themselves need to be held to account, and they're not being held to account. But Khan has expressed his support for Cressida Dick because he is facing an election and he wants to come across as being kind of positive and friendly with the Commissioner of the London Metropolitan Police. And he is prepared to give up any principle that ordinary ethical expectations would require him to uphold and practice. For example, Cressida Dick was supported by Ken Lying Still Livingston as well, when she was reported as the commander or commanding kind of mind behind the shooting of the Brazilian man in Stockwell underground station, or on the underground train in Stockwell station. And Ken Lying Still Livingston has got a career by making pretensions that he is friendly with the kind of Muslims, to the point that he became the symbol. He became the symbol even before the kind of anti-Muslim elements had got hold of Jeremy Corbyn. Because Ken Lying Still Livingston promoted the image of himself as being supportive of the Palestinians. That was an indirect thing, because it wasn't directly supporting the Palestinians, but indirectly, by implication, because he has been making not one, series of comments about the Jewish people. And the way that Lying Still Livingstone has made those comments have painted him as being friends or friendly with the or supportive of the people who the Jewish people, because of their connection with and support for the state of Israel, are oppressing. That is the perception. And this has been an elaborate route that Ken Lying Still Livingstone has taken over the many years. And he has damaged the campaign for the rights of the Palestinians, because he has diverted successfully the attention from the plight of the Palestinian people. So that is racist, because there is no Asian person or African person or person of African or Asian origin anywhere in the UK who has been allowed the kind of platform to argue for the rights of the Palestinians anywhere nearly as prominently or as often or at all. But compared to that absence, Livingstone has been given monopoly, if you like, platforms based on his references to the Second World War, the Nazis, Hitler, and the state of Palestine and Zionism. All of these things have been given exhaustive coverage, and one former Labour MP, John Mann, a particularly vicious anti-Ken Lying Still Livingstone person, was given platform on the main broadcasting networks in the UK to openly call Ken Lying Still Livingstone names and accusing him of any number of anti-Jewish statements and role and activities. So Ken Lying Still Livingstone has actually damaged the campaign for the rights of the Palestinians in this country or in the world, as has George Galloway. Because these are two white men, nothing to do with their being Asian or African. They're two white men who have intentionally monopolized the platforms in the name of the Palestinians. And neither Livingstone, Ken Lying Still Livingstone, nor George Galloway has, to my knowledge, ever cited one single Palestinian or Arab or Muslim as an authority from whom he has learned anything about the world, let alone about the Palestinians. So that is absolute racist abuse by Ken Lying Still Livingstone, posing as a kind of supporter of the Palestinians. And when it comes to Corbyn, who became a demon in the anti-Palestinian, anti-Muslim, racist Fleet Street, allegedly because of his alleged links with or endorsement of the so-called extremists supporting the Palestinian cause, because he is even more stupid than the other two, Corbyn damaged the campaign for the rights of the Palestinians because of his stupidity. I have observed or suffered having to kind of listen to and watch Corbyn in Tower Hamlets. He visited Tower Hamlets more than once, way before he became anything like the candidate for leader of the Labour Party. And he spoke at gatherings organized by mainly racist left in this country. And he, Corbyn, and the racist left who mainly attended these gatherings, they were not massive gatherings, they made patronizing and stupid and ignorant and out of context references to the Palestinians and their cause. So we come to the elected mayor thing because we started talking about Sadiq Khan and his reliance, Sadiq Khan's mental slavery to the racists in the white community. When he became elected in 2016, Khan appointed any number of white people. Most of them turned out to be women, white women, but he did appoint white people to various senior positions in his bureaucracy. And Sadiq Khan has not spoken about racism. He has not spoken about corruption. He has not spoken about any of these things that actually disproportionately affect African and Asian people in London. And so therefore he's not going to become any different this time. And this time is only 5 days away. And the fact that he is not accountable to anyone is actually the same thing as applied to two of the other mayors before him, Boris Johnson and Ken Livingstone. And they haven't done any favors to London people. Sadiq Khan is not kind of linked with anything that would not have been possible without the mayor post being there. So why there is a mayor post in London is something that needs to be examined, and this is too late now for calling for a referendum to free London from the corrupt post of elected mayor. That has to be done, organized by a longer kind of campaign than is available, than the time allows to be organized now. The time is only 5 days away, the election. But there are referendums in Tower Hamlets and in Newham to decide the future of the current incumbents in the corrupt post of elected mayor in Tower Hamlets and in Newham. Now, as I said earlier, there is no evidence that there is significant, cohesive, kind of grassroots level campaign ongoing right now in the Labour Party in Tower Hamlets or in Newham. There may be, but I don't see any evidence on the platforms that I see. But the case for an elected mayor was never made. It never existed in Tower Hamlets or in Newham. Yet, this post was created in both Newham and in Tower Hamlets. It was created in Newham in 2002, and it was created in Tower Hamlets in 2010. And there is no evidence available, publicly available anywhere that shows that the imposition or the presence of this mayor post, the corrupt mayor post, has helped the cause of democracy, accountability, or anything to do with the duties of the elected council. And as we have been campaigning, the Khoodeelaar campaign, for justice for the 4 schoolgirls from Bethnal Green that have been betrayed by Tower Hamlets Council, we have at least the 4 days or 5 days left, over which we shall be expanding on the campaign and why we strongly believe that Tower Hamlets Council could have made the difference in terms of saving these girls from being distracted and brainwashed and groomed by whoever groomed them, brainwashed them, and made them go to Syria. One astonishing thing about all of this, about these girls going to Syria, is that once they got there, their main task or the purpose or use or usefulness was as sex slaves. These are children. These were not mature, responsible adults. So they went there and they got involved in what is called marriage. These were illegal. They were not legal things. But quite apart from the legality or illegality of it, let's look at the logic of it. There is no logic. Because if they are called jihadi brides, then it gives the game away. They're not jihadi kind of fighters. I mean, they went there to be used as sex objects. So they were trafficked, to use the ordinary language. They were trafficked, these girls. And the fact that they were and they could be trafficked and brainwashed and groomed takes the questions straight to Tower Hamlets Council. What was the council doing when children from its borough were being trafficked as potential sex slaves as a part of the project of sexual trafficking? As if that was not bad enough, the fact that some of the trafficking ideas and the grooming and brainwashing took place in the East London Mosque makes it absolutely a criminal offense to be investigated in its own wrongs. Because the mayor incumbent at the time was Lutfur Rahman, who is very much publicly associated with the East London Mosque. So what was the Labour Party doing in Tower Hamlets? What were the other parties doing in Tower Hamlets when these girls were being trafficked, brainwashed, groomed? So everyone let down these girls, these children. And what did the police do, if they did anything, to prevent what was going on? Notice the word I've used, prevent. Prevent is something that the Blair Brown government created, apparently to prevent radicalization. And that was a racist, anti-Muslim kind of project, kind of conception. They prevented the truth from being learned and known about. And they focused on places like the East London Mosque and Muslim-named organizations to brainwash them and to employ them or engage them to spy on the Muslims. There was no Muslim community population to be spied on in that context. What was happening was that the very spies that the Brown and Blair regime kind of engaged or plotted were now busy spying on the ordinary people and targeting children like the 4 Beth-Melodian girls. So it's a serious matter, and no organization has mentioned this. We are the campaigners were mentioning it, but none of the others, and none of the kind of bodies that Lutfur Rahman funded from the budget of the Tower Hamlets Council itself. Any number of organizations were given hundreds of thousands of pounds in the name of whatever they were doing by Lutfur Rahman, including one or two or indeterminate number that didn't even apply for grants, and Lutfur Rahman gave them grants. What on earth for? And Lutfur Rahman was not held accountable for these abuses of the money. And to this day, there is no report by any of these groups as to what they used the money for and to what extent did they represent the actual objectively defined needs in the local community, and who audited them. And there is nothing from the Labour Party about that. So we are suspicious that the Labour Party is genuinely campaigning to scrap the elected mayor post. If it turns out that the votes went in support of scrapping the post, then we will know that some work was done. But at this stage, we cannot see how the Labour Party can be trusted to defend democracy, to defend the local community, and to uphold the needs of vulnerable people like these children. The only way that these vulnerable children and vulnerable adults and others can be given any support by the local council is if it is a democratic council, if the elected councillors are able and willing to speak and represent the reality on the ground to the council administration and to the council platform. And that can only be done by scrapping the elected mayor post and starting the process of democratic accountability that has been missing from Tower Hamlets, even kind of in theory, for the last 11 calendar years since October 2010. We shall be continuing this and updating on the others, and we shall be looking at the Financial Times piece about Narendra Modi, unmaking of